Beaver Builder, one of the OG page builders for WordPress, is looking to add components. They're cleaning up their code so that the output from their builder is a lot more like it was hand-coded. They recently introduced their box module, which allows you to insert a div and apply Flexbox and CSS Grid. And in a recent post on the Beaver Builder blog that we're going to go through in today's video, they give us a sneak peek into their plans to integrate with the block editor. Having a look at this video here, the Beaver Builder modules are going to be a one-to-one match in the block editor. So that's what we're looking at in today's video. We're going to go through this blog post that was released here, where they give us an inside look into what they're planning for upcoming versions for Beaver Builder. As you've just seen, some really exciting stuff, plus a lot more other things that we're going to cover in this video. Also, if you're like me and you haven't jumped into Beaver Builder for a little bit, I do that at the end of today's video, and we go through how it works to give you an idea of what's been going on behind the scenes in case you haven't been in there for a little bit. So with that said, let's look at the exciting things that the Beaver Builder team have planned. Beaver Builder is known as being that stable page builder that has been around for a very long time. They're known for their stability, but then also being an OG page builder, they have clients that have been using them for such a long time that the actual plugin's code base is going to be quite extensive, and they have to consider backwards compatibility, which I'm guessing is slowing down their ability to implement some of the newer technologies. For example, they recently introduced their box module this year, which allows people to use Flexbox and CSS Grid inside of Beaver Builder, which some of the newer page builders have had for a little while. But I was just on their blog and I was reading this blog post here where they're forecasting some of the features they're going to be adding into their builder in upcoming releases. And some of the stuff here that Justin, their developer, has outlined that they're aiming to achieve with Beaver Builder is pretty exciting. So I thought I would just make a video here just to at least let you know that they seem like they're keeping an eye on what everyone else is doing to stay competitive. So the table of contents for this post that we'll go through is their box module, their loop builder module, dynamic global content, which from reading it here in this blog post sounds like they're going to have components, which is what we had in Quickly, which is what Bricks Builder is about to release. So this is a really exciting section inside here that I want to go through. They're going to have modules without wrappers, which is going to reduce the DOM needed to actually lay out their pages, which is a problem that I had with Beaver Builder. And when I switched to Bricks Builder and saw how clean their output was, it was definitely something that they had to work on. They're introducing top-level container modules, which I'll show you what that is in a second, a new JavaScript module API, modules as blocks, which is making Beaver Builder modules, but being able to use them inside of the block editor, and a block theme. And again, all the features that are listed here in this blog post have not been released, and Justin has mentioned at the start of this blog post that they're in very early stages of development and they're not sure of a timeline of when they might be released and how their implementation will finalize in that released version. Coming down the page, the first thing that I want to look at is dynamic global content, and this is going to be components. So having a look at this screenshot here, on the right-hand side, we can see that there's a global row set. And inside of this row would be 3 modules, a heading module, a rich text module, and a button module. So to create that, we drag a row onto the page, then we'd add a heading module, add our text editor module, and then add our button module. And then up here, we would go to row settings, and at the bottom, we would click save as. Maybe we'll use this row to output the titles of pages on our website. So I'll say page titles row. And this is going to be set to global, and we'll click save. So by doing this, we've got to this point up here where we have a global row. But what this screenshot is suggesting is that in the future, when we have dynamic global content, inside of our global row, we should get a list of all the different child modules. And it looks like they're going to be laid out in an accordion. And if we expanded the accordion for the heading, I'm guessing we would see these fields listed inside of this accordion, where we could change the text for the heading, the HTML tag for the heading, and the link for this heading. And there'd be a pencil icon next to each of these inside of here. That way we could specify when we add this global row anywhere on our website, the heading inside of that global row, can we change the text inside there on a per instant basis? Understanding how components work to help you build your websites faster and maintain them easier from reading text like this can be a bit hard to understand. But here's how they work in quickly to give you an idea of how this would work inside of Beaver Builder. While the builders are obviously going to be different, the principles are going to be the same. So you'll go into Beaver Builder after you've created your dynamic global content and you would add that. So in my case here, I'm going to add a pro component in quickly, which would be a global dynamic element inside of Beaver Builder. And I could go ahead and duplicate this so you can have 2 instances of that same global module. Up here, I could give this a heading. So if I was doing a review of Beaver Builder, I could say long history of stability, and I could write a bit of text down here. And then for the second instance of that same module, I could write great support and write a bit of text in here. But let's say I wanted to make this green color a little bit darker. All I have to do is edit one instance, the main component, the global module inside of Beaver Builder. So here I'll go to modify in this example and then go and style this. And I'll go down to design, and for my background color, I could make this green a bit darker and see how it affects both instances of that same module at the same time. So you can style from one place and that affects all the instances of that across your website, but the actual content inside each instance can be different. That's going to be the power of what Beaver Builder are calling dynamic global content. Style in one place, have different content within each instance. And it says down here they're in very early stages of development, but they have a plan. And once it's implemented, you can, change the content per page while the rest of the content and layout are pulled from that global master source. This will be a powerful way to create reusable components in Beaver Builder without relying on things like advanced custom fields. We're also bringing this to more than just rows. Any piece of global content, including modules and columns, will also get this functionality. So a much needed feature for people managing content on their website. The next thing is that they're looking at cleaning up the HTML output of their modules. So if we have a look here, this is the current output. So you'd have your module. I'll just zoom in here. So you have your module div, and then inside there, it wraps it in another div for the content. And then inside there, it has the H2, and then it wraps the H2 content in a span. And I think that's for styling. And you can see that is, again, a problem that cascaded through all the different modules, just unnecessary wrappers, where over here it looks like they're cleaning it up, where you have the module class added to the actual HTML element, the H2. So you've just removed 2 different divs there that based on this weren't necessary using whatever they're about to implement. Down here, we also have a module, and then inside there we have the link that is wrapping the button text, where over here you had the module, then the wrap for the content, and then another div, and then the A, and then the span. So you've really just got rid of 2 different divs in every different scenario, I think, at a minimum, which is great to see that they're doing all of that. When I created this Bricks Builder review here, I did this section here, Flexbox creates less HTML. And in that example, I compared Beaver Builder, which is here, which I was using at the time, over to Bricks Builder, which if you have a look at Bricks Builder's output, it's just very clean. It's, they're moving towards how you would hand code a website is how a builder would output the HTML. That's obviously the end goal, the ultimate solution. And that's where builders like Bricks Builder have achieved. And the more legacy builders, the ones that have been around for a long time, that have to make everything backwards compatible maybe that's why they need to make sure they do this right. They're trying to where Bricks Builder is, where they're at with their outputted code. And so it's exciting to see that they're moving in that direction. Coming down here, top level container modules. Another part of our effort to allow the box module, which in Bricks Builder is the equivalent to the block module, which is a div, but it has flex properties that you can add, and then also a grid. So they're aiming to allow the box module to replace rows and columns and put them at the top level of the layout where rows go. Once this is done, coupled with the wrapperless modules, which is what we just looked at, you'll be able to build really lean layouts that look like they were coded by hand. As it stands right now, when you use a box module, it needs to go in a row. So here I am in a builder in the playground. I'll just remove that. And to show you what that means, let's go over to here and let's go to modules. And then here's our box module, which is again a div with flex properties or CSS grid, I think. If we drag that into the page wherever we want, see how it's going to add a new row? And then inside there, if we go over to the outline, it's the row and then it has our box. And if we double click on this and go to, I think it's over here. That's our box module, the container, and it's set to flex by default, I think, but you can set it to grid if you want. But this needs to be in a row. So if we save this and go publish and have a look at the code, we have our post and then our post content and then our builder content. And then we have the row with the row content wrap with the row content inside it. And then the actual module, which was the box module. Can you see how this is sort of the stuff that, if you're coming from Bricks Builder, this is the stuff that you're going to get a little bit frustrated with, especially if you're trying to like use some custom CSS. All this stuff's just getting in the way of the actual thing you're trying to target. And this stuff you don't see in the builder, like you don't see the content wrap div. It's just like a lot of stuff that's output on the front end that you don't actually control in the builder. It's going to be a bit frustrating if you're coming from something like Bricks Builder, where it is a one-to-one scenario. But here, there's our builder module. If we go here, it's display flex. The flex directions row. It has some gap. So that has to be in a row. So what they're aiming to do is to be able to just have boxes everywhere and get rid of that row. So that would obviously clean up the code a lot, because using flex, you get rid of that, you get rid of that. And when they eventually achieve what they're trying to do, you'd basically have this up here. That wouldn't exist. And this would be like L box. And then that would be like display flex. Then inside there, you'd have another flex, and everything is just divs with display flex or display grid, which again removes all those unnecessary divs. Down here, they're aiming to do a new JavaScript module API, which looks like this. And they're saying that it's getting into experimental territory, but on the surface, it will unlock a couple of different things for us. It's an early prototype. The first reason is that it will allow us to render modules instantly when you drop them on the page. So currently, when you drop a module on the page, it's rendered with PHP, which means it needs to go back to the server to then render them in the browser. I'm no JavaScript expert, but I think I know enough to sort of understand why that's going to be a lot faster. And this is the second really exciting thing for me coming from Quickly and Bricks Builder. We just looked at the ability to go out and create components before. Now looking at this video, it will be possible to use Beaver Builder modules in the block editor. And that's what we're seeing here. So if I play this video and just full screen it, so here they're going to drag one of the Beaver Builder modules in a post block. And then over here in the editor, we get these settings to be able to go and customize it. So based on that, it looks like maybe you don't need to use the Beaver Builder editor. You could just use the block editor, but with the power of the modules and the customization that the Beaver Builder modules allow you to do. But going through here, they said later on down here that it's going to be a one-to-one match. Like you'll be able to, they'll work identically in both editors, including responsive controls, dynamic data, and visibility settings. And having a look here, so I'll just go back a bit. So that's the post block. And now they're going to do a number counter that gets added. Again, you get all those different options you would have in Beaver Builder here in the block editor. So that's interesting. I don't know, is there another builder that is doing that, where they take their native blocks and they're implementing it in the block editor so you can use them? If you know of any ones that are doing that, definitely let me know in the comments below. I think they're the first ones to try and take that on. Now, lastly, they're looking at doing a full site editor, a block-based theme. So really looking forward to seeing how they move over these next couple of releases. Now, I wanted to give you an idea of how the editor works, and it does work differently to some of the other builders. Now, the first thing that I'll do over here is here and change it to the dark mode. I think that was it. So dark, just because I've been using Bricks Builder, I just got used to this. So now that we're in here with dark mode, over here, we have our outline, and this is where we're going to have our tree of modules on the page. So let's go ahead and add the box into our page. And again, it has to go into a row, and then we have our box. You know what? I think it's going to be easier for you guys to see if I go back to the light theme. But, if you're coming from Bricks Builder, the dark theme is there. So now with that done, we have our box there, and this has the flex box. So if we go back to modules and I was to add a heading, and I said test heading, and then we came up here and we added the text editor. So back here on the box, so you got to double click. You can't just single click, which is, I guess I'd rather just single click there, but if we double click, it goes into that. And then with flex, we could do it into a column. So now it's going down the page. And then if we wanted to have 3 of these, we could just right and duplicate, and then we could do that again. So duplicate, and now we have those 3. Then back on the row, if we click, I don't think you can do flex box on the row. So I think what we actually need to do is put that into a box again. So let's add the box here just above, and then let's add our 3 columns inside there. And then back on this box, we can then set them, well, they're on the row now. And then we could change the gap. Can you use, so you can't use variables in this. So I can't type var. I know some people will be wondering that. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to show you guys is CSS classes. So under the advanced tab, if I was to click on this here, click on that, and then under advanced, go down to the bottom. Then under CSS, I could add some custom code. So if I just do a wildcard here to see what it's targeting the inner of this just naturally using this CSS. But if you do a class up here like box, I don't think we can write CSS for that CSS class here. I guess you could add that class to each of these if you did want to do that. So just go up to this one, and then down here, you would add that there. And then up here under layout, CSS and JavaScript, you can write some custom CSS. Only loads on this page. But if you want to load globally, you'd go to global styles, I think. And then, no, this is how you style the defaults. I think you go up here to global settings, and then under CSS, you can write CSS that will apply site-wide. Now, by default, this isn't fixed to the side, so it sort of is like this, so you can sort of drag it around wherever you want. But I think I do prefer it just fixed over here so that I know where the settings are. It just seems like to keep it more uniform. With the outliner over here, it's floating over the top. It doesn't actually push the content. So if you're used to using a tree to navigate between elements, I think that might be something that is different. Also, if you don't show the outliner here, to get to the box that wraps this, I can go to the outliner and then double click on it there, or I can just go up to here and go there and then go to the box. And if I click that, then we're on the box. So again, like I was saying, it's a different interface, a different way of thinking how you navigate. If you want to go to the row, you do that. Anyway, that's just a really quick overview of the builder as it stands. If you go to their website, you can click here to try their live demo. So I want to share some thoughts before we end today's video. So firstly, who is Beaver Builder building their product for? Because that's an important thing to understand based on when we give feedback on these tools. Going to their website, if I go up to products, they have the drag and drop builder that we've just been looking at. They have a Beaver Builder theme, and this is a classic theme like Generate Press, where it's built using PHP. You have your header.php files, all those WordPress themes that we're used to seeing before the full site editor came about. Now, if we go up to their Assistant Pro, it says here, why reinvent the wheel with each new WordPress project? Which is implying that, hey, the person that's using Beaver Builder is probably, or in this case, there is a substantial user base that are building multiple websites. So I'm inferring from this as Beaver Builder is somewhat targeting web agency owners that need to build websites that are easy and fast to build and easy to maintain long term. There's also a marketplace here where you can buy templates from the cloud. And you can also, I think it's using Assistant Pro, you can save templates that you create inside your own business to the cloud so that any Beaver Builder website you're building in the future has access to those saved templates. So inside of Bricks Builder, you have the remote template library that you're used to connecting from a third party. Whereas in Beaver Builder, you create your own remote template library in the cloud, and you can access all those templates from any Beaver Builder website you create. So personally, I feel like they are positioning themselves as a builder that web agency owners should be using. So keep those things in mind as I share these next thoughts. If you've been subscribed to me for a while, you already know this, but in case people are new around here finding me from this video, I have been using Bricks Builder and Quickly, and they're class-first systems, meaning when I'm designing my pages, let's say I wanted to have this yellow box here with the rounded corners. The way that we do that is create a CSS class. So if I create it from scratch, I would go in and select it. So let's just say this is going to be my container. I would go to add a new CSS class, and I'd call this my box and press enter. And now I start styling this CSS class. So if I went to design and then under background, I could give it a background color of green. And then under margins and padding, I could add a padding that is my size M padding, or I could use my size large. And then that's done. And what's great about using a class first approach is that if I want to add this same styling to the other boxes, I could just click on this and I could remove this class. And then up here, I would find that class that we just created, which is my box, click it, and now that's there. And same down here, I could click, I could remove this class, and then I could search for it here and add that there. And then let's just say down the track, I want to change the background color. I could click onto here. My box is selected here under background. I could change that to a blue and it updates them all at once because they're using that same shared CSS class. So what I just showed you are two things you can't do inside of Beaver Builder. The first one is you can't create CSS classes and then add their properties here using the builder like this. And as you just saw, using CSS classes allows you to easily maintain the elements within your website because you just update the CSS class, and then anywhere that that CSS class is used, it gets updated instantly. You don't have to go and update this one, and then update this one, and then update this one. If I come to Beaver Builder and tried to do that same outcome where I could update just one of these boxes and the other two would update as well, one option that I would have is to click on this box here, and then under the Advanced tab, I could come down to Class, and I could say My Box, and then I could add it to this one here, scroll down, add the class there, click on this one, and then scroll down, add it here. But then I need to write my CSS somewhere. And if this is wrong, definitely let me know below. But because I can't create a class and then add the properties for that class here in the builder, the only option really is to write custom CSS under global settings, and then, not sure what happened there, so global settings, and then CSS, and then here we could start doing it. So we could go background red, and padding 25 pixels. In the future, if we wanted to come and change that color, we could change that to blue and that would update. But now we're writing this custom CSS in one area, but then we need to click on each of the elements to then go ahead and add the CSS class under advanced. It's just a lot slower. The next thing that I did over here with the class, if we go down to the margins and padding, we're adding variables here. And the reason we're going to use variables in different places in our website is so that if we ever need to make the size large variable larger, we can just edit that variable. So maybe this is set to like 1 rem. We could go to wherever that's specified, where size large equals 1 rem. We could update it to 1.25 rems, and anywhere we've used this throughout our website, it would automatically update everywhere. And where these variables really become beneficial is when you're using a CSS framework. And the reason you want to use a CSS framework if you're building multiple websites is that when you log in to one of your clients' websites, you know what variables are in there because you're using the same framework on all of the different websites. And that's the second thing that I outlined that doesn't seem possible here inside of Beaver Builder. So if we click on the box and we went to advanced and margins, if I try and write VAR like I did in here, if I copy this and paste it for margin, it doesn't work. I can choose any of these units, so pixel and percent, but I can't set these custom properties, which should be used in a CSS framework. Now, when I first made this outro, I said maybe I'm not the target market for Beaver Builder and they don't need to go and rush out and make these different things. But then if you look at the products that they're offering, it is really targeted at people that need to build, many websites and then maintain them long term. And to do that easily, you want consistency across all these websites, which ideally means that you're using a CSS framework, which has those variables, but then also able to use CSS classes, which allow you to quickly style things and edit from one place and update the styles in every instance you've used that class. when they release this dynamic global content feature like components, there's some things that will alleviate. So for example, if you have a component, you don't need CSS classes really for that component, because if you want to edit the styling there, you just edit this global content, this row, for example, change the background color on there, and then that will update in every instance across your website. It sort of has the end result of applying and maintaining a CSS class. But not everything in your website is going to be a global component. But I'm curious to see, as Beaver Builder moves to supporting more of the block editor and integrating with it, and then releasing their full site editing theme, whether or not they start to add these other things like the ability to integrate a CSS framework here using the custom properties of variables, and then also adding CSS classes here. The products they're putting out really just attract people that these features I just mentioned are pretty essential to have in a builder. But let me know what you think below. Do you think they're going to add classes, support custom properties in their inputs? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to know your thoughts on what I shared in this video.